welcome everybody back with an episode of Small Girls, Big God. We're going to continue with our Bible studies of First King, and we're going to pick up in chapter 2. And let's see what we discover today. I'm going to be reading from the NIV version. And the title is David's Charge to Solomon. When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon, his son. I am about to go away of all the earth, he said. So be strong and act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him and keep his decree and commands, his law and regulations, as is written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendants watch how they live, and they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. So let's stop right there, because this is very specific what David is telling his son Solomon. David in chapter 1, we already see like the power, the authority of David is being given to now Solomon, because now Solomon is the new king of Israel and Judah. So I have a question. What was the gist of David's instruction to Solomon from 1 King 2 verse 1 to 3? David said to Solomon, in other words, be strong, be a man, walk in obedience in the Lord's way, keep his decrees and commands, and follow the law of Moses. So I feel like these are very specific as like advice to his son for him to be prosperous in his kingdom. And what highlights to me the most is when he says walk in obedience in the Lord's way, because it's easy to follow the world, right? But the Lord gives us very specific parameters to follow, and it's really up to us if we're going to follow his way or the world's way. Obedience is a form of discipline, because you constantly have to choose what is right than what is wrong. It is so much easier to follow the world's way instead of the Lord's way. However, let's remember, as Matthew 11:29-30 says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So basically, the Lord is saying, follow my ways. At the beginning, it might seem like, oh, this is the hardest thing. But the more intimate you get with him, the burden becomes even lighter. However, when you're just walking in the world's way, the problems are just so much heavier because you have nobody to walk them with. But when you're in the Lord, you have the Lord. You're never alone. So that's what I love about God's word, because it reaffirms us that we can do this with his strength, not ours. In addition, as I was talking about discipline and obedience, and the discipline that we obtain is our training to grow as Christians. Discipline is not a condemnation. It's not a punishment. So we ought to follow discipline, because discipline teaches us obedience. I love how David made sure to leave this importance of walking in obedience with the Lord. I feel like experience definitely form who you are as a person, and I believe David is speaking from a place of experience of ruling Israel for over 40 years, and every trial and adversity that he passed as being king, and he just is advising and giving wisdom to his beloved son Solomon. Let's pick up from verse 5. Now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the two commanders of Israel armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Absam, son of Jethroth. He killed them, shedding their blood in peace times as if in battle, and with that blood he stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. Talking about Joab, and let's remember that Joab is the cousin of Adonijah, the son of David, the fourth son of David, who was trying to overtake David's kingdom as he was still alive. And now David is like bringing this up, like, hey, make sure that you take care of this. So now we're seeing what Joab has in his heart. We already see him not only aligning with Adonijah to go against David. However, we also see that previously he killed 2 men of David's army. Let's pick up from 5. Now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the 2 commanders of Israel armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Absam, son of Jethroth. He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle. And with that blood, he stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. Deal with him accordingly to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace. 7. But show kindness to the son of Barasali of Gilead, and let them be among those who you eat at your table. They stood by me when I fled from your brother Absalom. Remember, you have with you Shimei, son of Ger, and Benjamite from the Baharai, who called down bitter curses on me the day I went to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you death by the sword, but now do not consider him innocent. You are a man of wisdom. You know what to do to him. Bring his great head down to the grave in blood. Then David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. He had reigned 40 years over Israel, 7 years in Haram, and 33 in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rules was firmly established. Okay, so from verse 5 through 10, we already seen that David doesn't only give advice to his son, he also is leaving like his last wishes and telling Solomon, hey, I'm leaving, but I'm leaving this earth to go to heaven. However, I need you to be alert, deal with some pending business that I still have out there, you as my son. So there's several characters that we talked about here, and you know, if we haven't read the previous books such as Samuel 1 and 2, we can be a little bit lost of like who was who, because it's a lot of history here. So I looked it up. Okay, so there's few key characters within this story, so let's speak about them, right? So we definitely have David, and we know he's the second king of Israel and Judah. And we have Solomon, and he's the son of David, and he's the third king of Israel and Judah. And then we have Adonijah, the one who was trying to overtake David's kingdom in chapter 1 of First King. And he's David's fourth son, and he tried to claim the throne of Israel for himself. Okay, so that was just part of my notes. We have Joab, who's the commander of David's army. And let's remember that Joab, it's actually Adonijah's cousin, meaning he's to somewhat degree was David's nephew, meaning that the commander of the army was going against David when he was in bed, you know, about to die. That's horrible. That's being a betrayer. And then we have Shimei, that basically cursed David And he said, don't consider him to be innocent, and do not let him rest in peace. Make sure that you bring what he did to me, like make sure that he plays with blood, like meaning like take him out basically. Who is Shimei? I didn't know myself, and I looked it up, and it says that years earlier he had cursed David and threw rocks at him when he fled from Absalom. Absalom is another son of David that also was going against his father, but that's in previous books. And then we have Abiathar, who also went against David in chapter 1 of King, who is a priest who served David in Jerusalem, and he supported Adonijah to become king. So definitely a lot of betraying here. And then we have Benaiah, one of David's mighty men who took Joab's place as commander. There's a lot of bloodshedding, as we could see within verse 5 and 10, and I truly believe it has to do with a change of power and like David's last wishes. Continue with Solomon's throne established. 13. Now Adonijah, the son of Abihath, went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. Bathsheba asked him, do you come peacefully? Yes, peacefully. Then he added, I have something to say to you. You may say it, she replied. As you know, he said, the kingdom was mine. All Israel looked at me as their king. But things change, and the kingdom has gone to my brother, for it has come to him from the Lord. Now I have one request to make to you. Do not refuse me. You may make it, she said. So he continued, please ask King Solomon, he replied, not to refuse you, to give me Abishag, the Shunammite, as my wife. Very well, Bathsheba replied. I will speak to the king for you. So hold on. Do you see this? This is crazy. Adonijah is once again planning like a wicked scheme, and the reason why I say that is because he's coming to Solomon's mother and saying, hey, can you speak to your son for me? I can have one of my stepmothers as my wife. Because let's remember, in chapter 1, Abishag was David's youngest wife, the one that basically he married for not for like sexual pleasure or anything, but just to keep him warm. But Abishag was attending him, and he wants his stepmother to be his wife. That's definitely not good. And do you see his attitude too, even before coming to Bathsheba's presence? It's like, hey, I have a request for you, but don't deny me. What? Don't come to me with that mess. First of all, tell me what you want, and then I'll make my decision if I want to agree with you or not. Not like, oh, you better agree with me. No. And she says, and he also tells her to tell Solomon the same thing. Okay, so I wonder what Solomon is going to do, because this is not good. So let's pick it up from 19. When Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah, the king stood up to meet her and bowed down to her and sat down on the throne. He had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat down at his right hand. I have one small request to make of you, she said, and do not refuse me. The king replied, make it, my mother. I will not refuse you. What is up with these people saying, like, I have a request, but don't refuse me? No. 21. So she said, let Abishag the Shunammite to be given in marriage to your brother Adonijah. King Solomon answered his mother, why do you request Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? You might as well request the kingdom for him. After all, he is my older brother, and yes, for him and for Abithar the priest, and Joab the son of Surya. We clearly see that Solomon is not okay with this. Solomon is wise, that he's not just gonna do something because his mother's telling him, and it's coming like in a humbling way, like, hey, just give your one of David's wife to your brother. Solomon picked it up quick because he was like, basically, if I give Abishag to Adonijah into marriage, it's like basically I'm giving him the kingdom. Because, and he's so right, because look, the very first time that Adonijah went to Bathsheba, in verse 15, he says, as you know, he said, the kingdom was mine. All Israel looked to me as their king, but things change. And the kingdom has gone to my brother, for it has come from the Lord. So he's still having that little pride, like, hey, I was being king. Basically, the Lord has dethroned me. Dethroned me? I don't even know if it's a word, but sounds good enough to me. And we see that Solomon picks it up quick, even, and Adonijah was being smart, because he came through Solomon's mother, that Solomon has very much respect for. Look what Solomon did. He, as the mother came before his presence, he stood up, bowed down, and not only bowed down, he asked for a seat to be placed next to him to the right hand, as for her just to make a request, like, hey, all the comforts for his mother. And understandable, we honor our mothers very much. But look, Adonijah, who he was using to consider Abishag for marriage. So I wonder what's the consequences. 23. Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if Adonijah does not pay with his life for this request. And now, as surely as the Lord lives, he has established me securely on the throne of my father. He has founded a dynasty for me, as he promised. Adonijah shall be put to death today. So King Solomon gave orders to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He struck down Adonijah and he died. And remember, the King Solomon gave Adonijah, his brother, an opportunity in chapter 1 of Kings, when he went to plead for his life by holding the horns of the altar. He said, please have mercy on me, let me live, for I didn't mean to overtake you. Like, I see that you're chosen by the Lord, but look how wicked he is. He's coming to behind, like saying to the Bathsheba, hey, go speak for me, for I can have my stepmother as a wife, and we can see his intention. So look at the wisdom that Solomon had. He gave him one chance, and one chance only. And he caught his wickedness, and he said, he's like, you know what? You're out of here. Ooh, there's not messing around. They are not messing around. And we do see that Benaiah was mentioned, right? And who is Benaiah? Benaiah is one of David's mighty men. So mighty men, like a warrior, whatever. And soon we will see that Benaiah would take Joab's place. And so just throwing that fact out there, because it's going to come up. Picking up from 26. To Abithar the priest, the king said, go back to your fields in Anathoth. You deserve to die, but I will not put you to death now, because you carried the ark of the sovereign Lord before my father David, and share all my father's hardship. So Solomon removed Abithar from the priesthood of the Lord, fulfilling the word the Lord has spoken at Shilom about the house of Eli. When the news reached Joab, who had conspired with Adonijah, though not with Absalom, he fled to the tent of the Lord and took hold of the horns of the altar. Look at Joab. So he's doing the same thing Adonijah did. They're running to the tent of the Lord, holding on to the horn, saying, please have mercy on me, because things are getting serious. He already sees that the people that went against David and Solomon to overtake the power, having consequences. We see Adonijah is dead, Abiathar basically being exiled, and now it's left Joab, cousin of Adonijah, and who was the commander of David's army, running for the horns of the altar. So what's going to happen to him? 29. King Solomon was told that Joab had fled to the tent of the Lord and was beside the altar. Then Solomon ordered Benahide, son of Jehoiada, go strike him down. So Benahide entered the tent of the Lord and said to Joab, the king says, come out. He answered, no, I will die here. Benahide reported to the king, this is how Joab answered to me. Then the king commanded Benahide, do as I say, strike him down and bury him. So clear me and my whole family of the guilt of the innocent blood that Joab shed. The Lord will repay him for the blood he shed, because without my father David knowing it, he attacked 2 men and killed them with the sword. Both of them, Abner son of Ner, commander of Israel's army, and Amasa son of Jether, commander of Judah's army, were better men and more upright than he. May the guilt of their blood rest on the head of Joab and his descendants forever. But on David and his descendants, his house and his throne, may there be the Lord's peace forever. Okay, we read that, but that's actually very strong words right there. So we see basically Benahide, the new commander of David's army, but now aka Solomon, because now the king is Solomon. The new commander of Solomon's army is Benahide. But he was like, hold on, what do I do? Because this is sacred. Like, Joab is holding on to the horns altar. I'm being told by the king to go kill him, but he's in a sacred place. What do I do? And basically Solomon is telling him, I don't care, kill him. Kill him, because he has killed 2 men that were his colleagues. The innocent blood that he shed, may he be cursed for it by the Lord and all his family. Compared to his family, he says, unlike David's family, we will live within the Lord's peace forever. So it's a lot. It's a lot of contact here. We still keep seeing the bloodshedding, the transfer of power, of how differently they're handling these situations as they're approaching. Let's pick it up from 34. So Benani, son of Jehoiada, went up and struck down Joab and killed him. And he was buried at his home out in the country. The king put Benani, son of Jehoiada, over the army in Joab's position and replaced Abiathar with Zadok the priest. So we see who is taking over in the new positions. Verse 35 is highly important because we see how Benani is now going to be over the army of Israel. And we see how Abiathar was basically replaced with Zadok. And Zadok is the priest who stood by David even when Adonijah was against him. When Adonijah had everybody else support, Zadok was one of the few ones who said, you know what, this still seems right. I'm not going to support you. From 36. Then the king sent for Shimei and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. The day you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die. Your blood will be on your head. So we see that Solomon is giving Shimei a second opportunity. Remember, in verse 8 through 9, basically David is telling him, don't let him go in peace to his grave, and you deal to him accordingly. But use your wisdom, because you're a man of wisdom. So we see how Solomon says, okay, you can live within Jerusalem, because my father said that he wasn't going to take you out by the sword. However, me, Solomon, didn't say that, but I'm going to be very conditional with terms that I give you. I'm going to tell you, stay in Jerusalem, and if you leave Jerusalem, just know that you will be put to death because of your disobedience. Let's see what happens. 38. Shimei answered the king, what you say is good. Your servant will do as my lord the king has said, and she must stay in Jerusalem for a long time. Isn't that so familiar? Like, when you know something is beneficial for you, you are so quick to agree with it. You know, you're like, yeah, I'm all in, because you're in it at that very instant. But let's say, time is progressing. He said that he stayed within Jerusalem for a very long time. So what's going to happen? I'm really curious what's going to happen. 39. But 3 years later, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran off to Akashi, son of Maacah, king of Gath. And Shimei was told, your slaves are in Gath. At this, he saddled in his donkey and went to Akashash at Gath in search of his slaves. So Shimei went away and brought the slaves back from Gath. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king sought on Shimei and said to him, did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you, on the day you leave to go anywhere else, you can be sure you will die. At that time you said to me, what you say is good, and I will obey. Ooh, Solomon is bringing it up. You gave me your word, and basically you agree with the decree and the consequences that will happen to you if you leave Jerusalem. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you got to be careful to what you agree. People, it might sound good, but be careful. Use your wisdom, because you don't want to agree to something that will affect you in the future in a very wrong way. Just be wise. Sometimes just stay quiet if you don't know what to say. Sometimes silence is better than to respond. 43. Why then did you not keep your oath to the Lord and obey the command I gave you? The king also said to Shimei, you know in your heart all the wrong you did to my father David. Now the Lord will repay you for your wrongdoing, but King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain secure before the Lord forever. Then the king gave order to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and went out and struck Shimei down, and he died. The kingdom was now established in Solomon's hands. Something that stands out to me in 45, you see every time that Solomon is putting somebody to death, he's proclaiming like the Lord's peace over his kingdom, over his family. And I see it again. We see it in verse 33, and now I'm seeing it again in verse 45. Because in verse 33, he's putting to death Joab. And in verse 45, he was putting to death Shimei. And basically, 45 says, but King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain secure before the Lord forever. 33 says, but on David and his descendant, his house and his throne may be there for the Lord's peace forever. So it's like, this is definitely what I was talking about, the bloodshedding, because of the new power that was coming in. And it says it in the very last verse, the kingdom was now established in Solomon's hand. You see, there was death, and it was kind of like things that had to occur for Solomon's throne to be established, like clearing the things that were not good. because these people will eventually conspire against Solomon. So that's our reading with First King chapter 2. I hope this video helps you out a little bit. It's helping me break this down. This is an interesting book. The first 2 chapters are kind of full of content because we have to see who is who, getting behind the scenes, getting information. But it seems like the chapters are getting shorter, so these videos will get shorter. Well, thank you for joining and have a great night. Bye.